So I managed to get my grubby mitts on another closed beta. This time we're looking at Pit People, the next game on the horizon for Castle Crashers and Battleblock Theatre creators Behemoth. And I have to say from the start, it's a tremendous game, and in the same familiar style as their previous titles, with the trolls returning as well as the Cyclops, all of the characters we've come to associate with jokes about poop as well as some new ones. This time the world has been smashed into hexagon tiles by a humongous bear flying through space, and the residents have taken this opportunity to fight each other at every given moment. You play as Horatio, a blueberry farmer who's been tormented by a cruel narrator. It sounds far better when Will Stamper explains it. For this beta they actually laid out tasks to try out on each day, and I tried to follow them as best as I could and decided to do a daily diary for the tasks. So the things to try out on day one were just installing the game, getting it set up how you like it, and basically having a bit of a roam around. Easy enough. And it all starts out with a nice intro narrated by Will Stamper, the same guy that also narrated Battleblock Theatre. Although the narration is quite similar in style, the feel is quite different. The narration almost seems to be sinister in a way, frequently telling the hero he's going to die, and telling him to do things he doesn't want to do, such as freely giving away his blueberries. It's all quite light-hearted and jokey, everything you'd want from a traditional Behemoth game. So far, gameplay-wise, it mainly consists of fairly guided missions to explain some of the mechanics and get used to the navigation and generally learn how to play. So far it seems quite simple, the missions were easy and it felt you could pull off just about any move and get away with it. I did lose the princess in one fight, but she seemed to respawn almost instantly and was ready to go into the next fight straight away, so it doesn't appear to have permadeath mechanics as seen in some other turn-based strategy games. I'm enjoying it so far, and although not a great deal has happened, it seems completely stable and I didn't experience any bugs. On day 2 I started out by doing some exploring to try and get some more money and equipment while getting the final recruit for my team, which just so happens to be a goddamn unicorn, which fires horns that explode into rainbows. This now seems to be my predominant source of damage, as it holds the back line firing away into the crowds, and it has a derpy face to go with it all. It's a perfect fit with the team. So far I seem to be finding mostly cosmetic gear and a lot of weapons which are equivalent in terms of power to what I already have, so although I've switched gear a number of times, the actual change is quite minor. I also started to do some of the side quests, which involved rescuing a lost leopard and returning him to Dave the leopard farmer. Who am I to question someone that farms leopards? And I also protected the volcano villagers against a wave of firemen led by an evil penguin. The humour is consistent as you might expect, and the variety in the content is fantastic. Now that there is a little less railroading, it certainly seems to be becoming far more entertaining. Day 3 I spent in the pit trying out some of the unfair challenge mode against AI, and also some of the PvP mode. This is where I learnt that my team wasn't exactly perfect. The unfair challenge mode consists of 3 battles against AI, and if you lose any of your members in your team, they're gone until the end. On my first attempt I lost far too many troops in the first battle, and I quit as a squad of 3 would have struggled. I got much further second time around, and one thing it showed was the variety of the creatures available in the game, and just how different their abilities can be. I managed to make it through to the last round but took too many casualties in the second round. After this I tried my hand at PvP and ended up going against the current number 1 in the tournament mode. It was pretty much downhill from start to finish as I got whooped good and proper, but I did learn a valuable lesson about team composition. However, it was much easier to gauge when spectating him fight a much more accomplished team which was more balanced, and to make it a little bit more interactive you can also place bets when spectating. I did lose all of my bets, but it wasn't a huge amount, so it was definitely worth trying out. So day 4 was supposed to be all about collecting equipment and fighters, ready to trade them over the telephone in the village, so I promptly picked up my net and went hunting for new troops and picked up the King of the Mushrooms and Shub Shub the Cyclops. I also started to run through the Tinkletown side quests by aiding in cleaning up the town and trying to find out who the mysterious pooping culprit was and stop him in his tracks. It was suitably silly and childish, you know, right on my level. And I'm also starting to get a good number of weapons with elemental effects, and I may have equipped too many, as I can't have virtually any of my units stood together without them hitting each other. They vary between explosives, poison and rainbows, a mixture which is surprisingly dangerous to anyone regardless of allegiance. Unfortunately I wasn't actually able to try out the trading system as I couldn't find anyone to trade with, but I suspect this was because I was trying to use it at an unusual time. It would be useful given that I was trying to get rid of a lot of items which I have no intention of using. It looks like there is more than enough variety in the game to keep you going for some time. I'm still discovering new things such as areas on the map, new fighters to recruit and new equipment which all sculpt your playstyle differently. On day 5 I was supposed to do some more PvP, or spectate it, But since my team is still pretty far behind the average player, I opted to do some questing and spectator match instead. I didn't get any new recruits today, but I did change a lot of the area effect equipment out in favour of trying to keep my friendly fire damage down, and hopefully being able to explore a little bit longer and a little further out. It seems to have worked out quite a lot better, but I still feel like my team doesn't have the synergy needed to make full use of the game. I don't know how much further the map goes out, but with my current equipment I can only make it through 2, maybe 3 fights before needing to return or set up a campfire. It just seems like a case of learning more about the game by playing it longer and getting enough recruits to actually do some experimenting and start to craft the perfect team. The game is still solid and I haven't had any problems, I just can't find anyone to trade my useless equipment with. No one ever seems to be at the other end of the phone. I didn't get to try out the Ghost Team feature as suggested for day 6 as I'm still yet to find a teammate to run through the story with, but as I understand, once you've played with a friend, the AI can take over the wheel and you never need to talk with your friends ever again. Instead, I decided to continue on my journey through the side quests, but my progress was halted twice this time as I failed on 2 separate quests on my first attempt. I'm still yet to be actually killed in a quest, but I did fail to protect a cupcake. I just didn't react to the situation fast enough. I was busy dealing with the crowd of bad dudes rather than trying to protect a delicious cupcake. I was very foolish, and a mistake I will not make a second time around. But I did then go on to lose the vote in Tinkletown as well, as I discovered the side story continues, and Tinkletown is trying to elect a new mayor. Unfortunately, someone is trying to rig it, and trying to get the current mayor to step down by hiring thugs. Overall, I think the game has a good difficulty level. It's not so hard that you're frustrated, and you can usually work out where you went wrong the first time around. But if you want a hardcore experience, there is also an insane mode available too. The good news for everyone involved is that the beta has been extended, and with free reign too. I think I'll be spending the majority of my time trying to do some more of the side quests and picking up some new members to experiment with. But if you want to get your hands on it too, currently the release date is set to before the apocalypse. So that could be any time really. Hopefully some indication of schedule will be released once the beta tests are out of the way. I would never recommend a game based on an unfinished product, but I have to say this is a very solid game. It runs well without faults, and most importantly it's fun to play with lots of variety. In other words, I'm sold on it. It has that certain charm that only Behemoth games seem to be able to provide, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the finished game will look like.